Welcome, everybody, to the brand new Vortex Nation podcast Fall Hunt Recap Series. I tell you what, fall is in the air, and 1/3 the fun of any hunt is telling the story afterwards. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to tell the stories of folks here internally at Vortex, folks externally as well. We're going to do them as real time as possible, as close to the close of these hunts as we can to capture the essence of the hunt, the energy of the hunt, and hopefully give you some information you can take to the field. Tune in, listen up, let's start the show. What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic, and welcome to yet another Vortex Nation podcast Fall Hunt Recap. I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Samong Yang, Samong Outdoors on YouTube, Psy_outside on the Instagram machine. Washingtonian, fellow Washingtonian. Samong, a lot of your content is Washington-based. We're not talking about Washington today. You are out of state. You're on a really cool combo hunt with some really great folks. This hunt recap, man, this is basically live reporting, by the way. I mean, you're still in camp. You're going to punch out today. You got another hunt on the books. So, man, before I keep going, tell me what's going on. What have you been up to? It sounds like a super exciting hunt from what I gather thus far. And, man, let's break this thing wide open.
Yeah, man. So, as you said, live on the spot, live on the location. So I'm currently sitting here in my room of the lodge, and today's actually my last day here. So we hunted this morning, came back to the lodge because Andrew's out there processing an animal. I came in here to start transferring files because, I'm filming stuff, and get a call from Mark. He's like, hey, man, let's change the dates for our podcast and do it right now.
Well,
I'm like, let's do it.
It's not my fault you got one.
I wasn't expecting to get one either. So in our defenses, we didn't expect this, but here we are. We had some time in the middle of this hunt, but man, it's been a killer hunt. But yeah, so I am currently in Wyoming. I am not home in Washington. This is honestly my dream state to hunt in the lower 48. Wyoming's always been that state. I really had no intentions of doing this hunt this soon. But I am here on behalf of YETI. I'm a brand ambassador for them. And Mr. Andrew Jones, basically back in like January or February during the hunt planning season, he's like, hey, man, like for our hunt this year, like, what do you want to do? And so we're like kind of just like, gathering a list of what hunts we might want to do. And this hunt wasn't even on the board. Like we were planning some other stuff. And then I guess what happened was one of the other brand ambassadors for YETI couldn't make it on this trip, or something fell apart. And so they're like, well, we have a slot open. So he's like, well, let's hit up Samong and see if he wants to do this. And so he said, like, hey, do you want to go on a Wyoming mule deer hunt? And I'm like, sign me up. And then he says, there's a catch. And I'm like, what's the catch? And he's like, we got to do it with the bow. And I'm like, let's find another hunt. I am not a bow hunter. I like to shoot things dead with a rifle. Like, I am a rifle hunter at heart. A bow hunting is just, I like to take her for a hike, and that's about it. But anybody that knows Andrew, like, he's all about archery. And so on this hunt, he's actually hunting with a recurve because he just really likes to make his life hard. With that said, to a little spoiler, he filled his deer tag and his antelope tag with a recurve, and I have yet to fill my antelope tag. So if that doesn't speak volumes of just how differently built this man is, I don't know what else to tell you, because spawning stock with a compound bow in and of itself in open country is already an extremely difficult task. And this man's walking around with a stick bow. So that is a little bit of a preface to why we are here in Wyoming. So do you have anything before I kind of
No, man. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think bow hunting is hard enough. I mean, I always say in bow hunting, everything needs to go right and then go right again. And to restrict yourself even further with, traditional equipment. But when I say that though, I think I'm talking about myself, right? Like, I feel like at least in my bow hunting journey, whatever, like I'd be restricting myself. Man, the guys that are good at recurve hunting and trad hunting and self bows, whatever, number one, they're incredible hunters, and they know their craft, they know their equipment, and I'm actually not sure how limiting it is for them at times.
Let's just say that Andrew's comfortable distance with the recurve is the same as mine with my compound bow. He is insane with the recurve bow, and he can probably shoot more effectively, but he likes to lean more on the safe side of things when it comes to distance, because that recurve bow is shooting significantly slower than a compound bow. So it's more time for an animal to jump a string, you name it. But man, with what I've seen in the past 2-3 days hunting with the recurve, I mean, like, he's more deadly with that than I probably will ever be with the compound bow. He's awesome, man. Like yesterday on his mule deer's buck, he shot basically at last light, and as he's working up, he's like losing light, and I'm filming through the spotter, and I have both the Chris next to me, and I'm like, dude, if he pulls this off, he's him. And he pulls it off. And I'm like, dude, I have no words to just glaze this guy anymore. Like, I have used all the positive acronyms and all the positive adjectives I can describe this man. I have no more. So yeah, with that said, that's the reason why I'm here. It's really because Andrew, he's so like, he really pushes you out of your comfort zone, which is really good, because now looking back at it, I'm really glad I got into this, because spoiler alert, I killed a buck, my first ever archery deer. And so, yeah, I guess that's why you kind of wanted to hop on a call and get the story when it's fresh, because as I told you before the podcast, you're the first person outside of the camp to even hear about the story.
That's so cool, man. I'm absolutely pumped. So tell me a little bit, of, the front end stuff that you did to get ready for this hunt. Like you said, it's a little bit outside the scope of what you're generally doing. Yeah, I imagine you're like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's go. What happened next?
Yeah. So back in the last week of June, so Andrew and I, we actually went to the Red Lodge Total Archery Challenge in Montana. And so I went out there, and prior to this hunt, like I've been shooting this, like, I don't know, 8-year-old Vortex bow, and I shoot it very well. Right. So we went out there, and I also here Matthews lift, and well, not it's like used, but then it's like they never used it technically. And so it's technically a new bow. For me, it's a new bow. But then when I got the bow, again, I'm not really an archery guy. So setting up a bow, doing all the toning stuff, like, I'm not really the guy to know how to do it. And so I took it to the pro shop, and I take it back, and I'm like, at first, when I first started shooting this new bow, like, I was like, I just can't really shoot well, because what I also did was I use a traditional wrist strap release. But then with this new bow, I was like, I really want to try a thumb release. And so going from a wrist strap to a thumb release, it was like learning a new language. Like everything felt off. It was very different. And so right off the get-go with this new thumb release and the new bow, I was very unconfident with my shooting. So that was like a week before Total Archery Challenge. So I opted for my old bow, my Vortex. I took it to Red Lodge, and granted, like, again, with Total Archery Challenge, you're shooting very far on average. Like, you're usually 60 to 80 yards, pretty average. And so I'm like, that's really far outside of my comfort zone. But he's like, well, if you lose an arrow, that's on you. So it's like, there's pressure on you where, like, okay, if I lose all my arrows, there's no practice. Well, I ended up going to Total Archery Challenge with him. I ended up shooting pretty dang well. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm a lot more capable, or I'm just thinking archery is a little too hard. I'm not giving myself enough credit. And so I'm like, I'm really dialed with this Vortex, and I think I'm just going to hunt with this Vortex. But the problem with that is I'm shooting a wrist strap with that one, and I know that when I go to draw, that wrist strap squeaks. Like, something I want when you're trying to spot and stalk on a bedded buck, or in this case, also antelope. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take the leap and just go with a new bow and just practice as much as I can. But dude, this for me, I hardly got time behind the bow. So it was like 10 days before. So basically this whole Wyoming trip is the second leg of this super long road trip. So I'm in Spokane, Washington. I drove to like Southwest Oregon. But yeah, anyway, we drive down to Squirrel Camp, and Squirrel Camp is very lenient. So you hunt the morning, but then you have all day to just sit at camp. So I opted to use that time at camp to just shoot this bow. And I ended up getting more comfortable with a bow, and, I'm 47 yards, 50 yards. I'm like, this is all I need. And so after that's over, we drive 19 hours straight, or not straight, but over the course of 2 days, we drive from Southwest Oregon all the way to Wyoming, which is where we're at today. And, I'm over here, I'm telling Andrew, I'm like, dude, like, honestly, like, I'm not super confident, but I'm confident enough we get range, we can shoot them. And so that's basically how I got here. And that's basically the practice. Didn't get a lot of practice with the bow. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. But it was enough for me to be like, okay, if I can shoot that little 3-inch target on this box, like I'm sure a mule deer vitals are a lot bigger. And so anyway, that's basically the practice. Not a lot of practice, but again, even though I'm an amateur at bow hunting, like a bow, I've shot it for basically 10 years, right? It's just I'm not as in tune with somebody who shoots it every day. And so anyways, we get here and we only have 3.5 days on this hunt. Originally, it's supposed to be 5 days, but I had another hunt, which is right after this hunt, come out of nowhere. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to make both of these hunts work. And Andrew was gracious enough to be like, all right, we'll just scoot this hunt forward a few days, cut it short a little bit, and we'll just really try to make it work in the 3 days that we have. So I mean, we're on crunch time.
That is crunch time, but I mean, that is crazy. I mean, you've been on the go. You went from Total Archery Challenge, which is like really perfect practice for a hunt like this. You switch bows. Mm-hmm. You get to squirrel camp, shoot your bow a bunch in squirrel camp, which I'll say, like, it sounds like it's like, I think at least to me what it sounds like is like, yeah, you didn't get a ton of practice, but you got comfortable and practiced up with the bow. The bow was shooting well, 30, 40, 50, 60, those types of yardages, the types of yardages you're going to counter on a hunt like this, that like, hey, you're shooting it good. Arrows are hitting behind the pin at those distances. Like, even though maybe you're like, oh, I didn't get to practice all summer, like the system is ready to rock at the same time.
Exactly. And so, like I said, at this point, it wasn't really the bow. The equipment was fine. If anything, it was going to be the shooter, which is me, right? I was like, I know my bow is shooting fine. Like, it's consistently grouping. I know my pins, what they're shooting at. It's just up to me to execute the shot. So again, not the most practice as much as I would have liked, but enough to make me comfortable with the bow. And so, so today is Wednesday, and we roll in Sunday evening, like 4:00. And that's when everybody's rolling in. So there's a myriad of people here. So I'm here obviously with Andrew. Andrew showed up first. We also had Chris Ock over at Remi Warren. He was showing up. He's basically here to do all the photography, some filming for us. So we just have an awesome group of guys here, like just people you really want to have in your circle here. And we're hunting an area where Chris Ock's father has hunted for like 4 decades, like 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so like they know like this place just like the back of their hands. Like they know how these deer behave. Like they just know all the little spots you want to check. Right. So like that's already a super big leap of starting from ground zero. Right. So I'm rolling in here just kind of getting my hand held by these guys who know the deer well, who know how these herds work, who know the country very well. Again, my only job was to execute a stock, execute a shot. The rest is just kind of up to them, right?
Simple, right?
Even for me, I was like, even though there's 2 things I need to do, that's still a lot asking for me. So anyways, the first night we go out and man, it's like we have like 2 hours of last light. And this place is flooded with antelope. So I have both an antelope tag and a mule deer tag. And there's antelope everywhere. Like I am talking about like everywhere you look, it's just white dots there, white dots there. It's just like, and they're just like, oh, there's so many antelope. We only want to go after the big ones. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like, I really want to shoot a deer. Like I'm the mule deer is the primary thing of why we're here anyway. The antelope was just really a bonus thing. So anyway, we get up to like a little vantage now because where we are, it's like eastern Wyoming. So it's a lot of like rolling hills, and then down in the creek bottoms, you kind of have just like these or little gullies, right? So but for us, like the most part, if you just get up high, you can see a lot of country, like miles. So it's sagebrush country, some grass type stuff, very, very few trees. And so the first night we go up, and it's basically just Chris, because Chris Ock is essentially in charge, right? He's essentially our host. So we're driving on the side by side, just covered country, and we get up high, and he's just trying to get me a lay of the land, get me kind of familiar with like kind of what we're going to be doing and whatnot. And like we probably saw over like $30 in the first hour, probably like 150 antelope, right? Like this place is crawling with critters, and they're like, worst case scenario, you will have shot opportunities. We just don't know if you're going to connect. We just don't know if you brought enough arrows, right? That's really the concern here. The opportunity and the amount of game, that's not the concern. They're everywhere. And so it's a really game-rich environment, which to me, growing up in Washington, hunting, how I hunted with my family, it's like, dude, you don't see game like that. Like you work really, really hard to find the first legal 3-point mule deer, right? Like in here, it's just like they're crawling everywhere. So in particular, there was this buck that has been seen in this area for multiple years now. And They just really said, hey, this is the deer we would really like for someone to take. Like, he's really old and he's just kind of past his prime and he just doesn't have the best genetics. He's a giant 2 on one side and just a giant 2 on the other side as well, but he's got a 3-point on his left side. So he's just not what you're looking for a classic 4x4 or that type of caliber buck. So they're like, we really want you guys to look at this.
Samong, I'm going to interject here just a sec. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but growing up in Washington now, and I grew up, hunting blacktails on the west side of the state, but I have a very strong affinity for big 2 points.
Me too. Me too. So there was, so before we spot, so we ended up finding this quote unquote target buck, like last light on that first evening. But before we got there, there was just a true 2 point, super heavy, just a solid 2. And he's hanging out and he's in a herd of about 10 to 15 different bucks. I mean, none of them are big, they're just very raggy type bucks, right? Like nothing super impressive. Some of them were right at that age where you're like, he probably needs another year or 2. I mean, that language I don't use in Washington. It's like, oh, he's got 3 points, he's getting blasted. There's no such thing as another year or 2 because he's going over that next, so he's getting blasted by that guy. But here we are. It's like it's a completely different environment. They're like, no, we're after a certain age class, we let those guys go. And so basically what happens is Andrew and I were both the primary shooters. So Andrew's got a deer tag, I've got a deer tag. And how they wanted us to allocate these tags, and this is not by regulation, this is just by the people who essentially manage this area want it done. They're like, you guys can take 1 trophy buck, just find the biggest buck you can, and one of you guys get them. The other tag is a management tag where we want you to take a buck that just doesn't have the best genetics. And so I'm looking at this other 2x2, not their target buck. And I'm like, dude, isn't that like a qualified 2 point? Like, he's just a solid 2 point. Well, they basically said no. They said, we want you to go after the 2x3. And I was not going to object that because, again, I've never killed a deer with a bow. And so I told Andrew, I was like, dude, any deer that I get the green light on, like, I don't care how big he is. I don't care what he looks like. Like, I just want to gain experience. I just want to get some stalks in, just want to get practice in. So that first evening we show up, we glass him up on this knob with 2 other bucks. And Chris is like, oh, I have a very good feeling I know what he's going to do in the morning because they've seen this buck years in a row now. So the next morning we get up before first light, and sure enough, we basically glass him up in the same exact spot. And then he goes up and over. Eventually we watch him up and over that little rise that they were feeding on. And then he eventually goes and dips out of sight. And so we're just on the side by side, just driving these roads, right? So we drive past them, get to the opposite side now, glassing back to where they had now crested. And we're like, all right, this is how we're going to make a play. So Andrew and I, again, we're both a shooter. So we're like, well, let's both go in there. And if there's an opportunity where we both can have 2 different angles, like, we'll set up there, right? Because you just up your odds of that. So basically they're like bedded just right off the top of this ridge. And so the only way that we were going to come in with how the wind was blowing was you can't come up top because the wind's blowing down the ridge at this point because it's basically first light. And so the only way was Andrew and I would have to drop all the way down to the bottom and come from the bottom underneath them, pop up and shoot them tight, right? So instead of coming up over a rock or something, now you're coming through the tunnels and then popping up under them, basically. Long story short, an hour in, we get in range and this buck is bedded at 45 yards. And I'm looking at him. So he's laying there at 45 yards and he's quartering to, but then he's looking to my left in a way. I am basically waiting for this buck to get up and walk to the right, like 3 steps. And I have him perfectly broadside. If he walks out, he's open. So, but I'm peeking out of this mound, like this mound is in between him and I, and that's what I'm using for cover. And so I'm just kind of like, occasionally like peeking out to make sure like, oh, is he still there? Is he still bedded? What's he doing? Andrew is actually to my left about 7 yards and the mound is small. So I'm peeking from the right. Andrew is looking from the left and he can also see the buck. But again, Andrew's hunting. In this case, it was my stock. So like I was going to be the guy that this was set up for. And so I'm trying to film this. So our Chris are at our glassing knob. They're just overseeing me and Andrew. And I have a GoPro strapped on my head and I go to take off my GoPro because I had to vlog a little bit. So I start talking. And so we've been here for about 15 minutes. And as I'm doing that, I can't hear because I'm messing with my head and the buck stands up. Like they get up and Andrew's like, psst. like Andrew's like trying to like whisper and get my attention, but I'm fumbling with this GoPro in my head. And so he stands up. Instead of going to the right, what he does is he picks up, walks, and he's essentially coming straight at me. And I am clueless because I'm still messing with my GoPro. And finally, Andrew's like, hey, he's up. And so I look over and I peek out like this. And sure enough, like I just see the rat coming towards me. And I'm like, oh man, here he comes. And so at this point, again, complete rookie, like I had ranged only where I thought he was going to go. I did not range anything that if he was going to take any other route. So here he comes straight at me. And so I'm like, okay, now I need a range. So, but the problem is like I'm peeking out like this to the right, and he catches my movement of my right arm as I'm peeking out of the mound. And so he stops. And so I just see his left antler kind of like sticking out of the mound. And I'm like, all right, well, he's sub 30 at this point, where he's at least 35 or something, sub 40. So I know he's in range. So I knock, like my arrow's already knocked. I get my release on, and I'm like just waiting. And he is just looking because he's like, he caught movement. And he's just like, oh, like looking around. And so at this point, all I see is him. What I didn't know was as I looked back up, his buddy came running out and he ran past him out towards, he was going to go out to where I originally wanted him to come out. And as he comes out, like he doesn't go out all the way, but I just see like antlers that instead of looking at you frontal, horizontal now. So I'm thinking, oh, this he turned. So I'm thinking instead of coming down, he turned broadside. So I'm like, this is perfect. He's like 35. I'm going to just draw, get up, shoot him broadside. So I go, I draw. And so again, the deer in front of me, but to draw out of view, I'm drawing to my left, and then I'm going to swing in front. So I go to draw to my left. And as I swing my bow in front, my bow lets down because I did not compensate for how steep that hill was. Because when I brought it over, basically my draw length shortened, right? Because I'm trying not to hit the bow on the ground in front of me. So I let down and I'm like, oh crap. So I look over, I just see an antler still standing there. I'm like, okay, he's still there. So I go back to drawing and I'm like, this is now or never. I stand up. I'm already anchored. I stand up and boom, right there. Instead of one deer, there's two deer standing frontal looking directly at me. And I'm like, wait, which one is the buck I'm after? Because I never saw a second deer. All I saw was the big buck, or at least I thought it was the big buck. So there's a smaller buck to the right now. There's the big buck that I'm trying to shoot to the left. So I'm on the right buck, and I'm like, that's not the right deer. I swing to the left. I'm like, that's the deer I want. But he's frontal. He's completely frontal at 35 yards. And I'm locked on him. I'm like 35-yard middle pin is literally in his chest. And I'm like, do I send it? Every ounce of my muscle was just like, send it. But I was like, dude, you know better than that. Like 35 yards frontal, he's literally looking at you. I was like, so I'm like, I'm holding and I'm like, all right. He looks at me for like maybe 5 seconds. And I'm like, I know he's going to turn, but I hope he turns and he like does a double take and then looks back at me. I'm hoping he stops. He turns and he just takes off. He just trots with his buddy and they just start, and I'm just following him up the ridge and I let down. And I look over at Andrew and I'm like, dude, I messed up. Like I, for whatever reason, I don't know what I saw in the moment. I swear I thought I saw him turn, which is why I got up and drew when I did. But it just so happened, like hindsight now, it was actually just that buck originally running to the right or to my right that I saw horizontal antlers. We ran up to the ridge, saw them just basically fly off into the next county. And I'm like, well, there goes that management deer. And so we don't have to go after him. Let's go find a new one. And so I was obviously pretty upset. Like, but then at the same time, I undergo the model of no shot is never the wrong shot. Like, yes, it hurts that I didn't get the deer, but I'm always grateful that I don't have a deer out there running wounded with an arrow sticking in them. So we go back up there and we kind of regroup. So we come back to the lodge and we're kind of just, regrouping, eating breakfast and whatnot. And so what happens here is like antelope, they kind of just bed in the open all day. They're not like mule deer where like they're up feeding in the first light at evening and then they just go hiding up in the afternoon. So they're like morning and evening, that's mule deer. During the day, antelope are everywhere. We'll just go hunt antelope. Even though there's antelope everywhere, that doesn't mean they're all stockable. Like you got to find the one in the right spot at the right time and with the perfect opportunity for a stock. And so we're just kind of driving up, and at the same time, Chris is just showing me different areas that they found success in and whatnot. And so my camera guy, Chris, as we stop up on this road, just kind of looking on both sides of this super big, vast landscape, he spots an elk shed on a far ridge, just like kind of down in a gully. And we're like, oh, let's go pick up that shed. So we drive around, and with a side-by-side in sage country, like you don't really have to be on a road. You can kind of just take it off-road, if you will. So we get over there, and my camera guy, Chris, and we walk down to the elk shed. And as we walk down to the elk shed, Remi's Chris is walking down to go check out this other goalie. And so the side-by-side's parked up top. And as we're picking up the shed, I'm like filming my guy pick up the shed. And the other Chris is whistling, getting our attention. I look over, and there's like a little 2-point mule deer standing in between us, because Chris Ogg had gone down there, and this buck was bedded down there, and he had jumped him. And so now he's standing on the ridge between us and, or between me and Ogg. And so he runs over to the other drainage where we had just come over, and he just takes off. And so we pick up the shed, and we go back to the side-by-side. And so we actually start backtracking, because that elk shed was a little out of route. We were going to go right. The elk shed was to the left. And so we just took a off route to the left side to pick up the shed. And then now we're driving back to the right to our original destination. Well, as we first drive out into the draw that little 2-point had come in, that we literally just drove past like 5 minutes earlier, my camera guy and myself were sitting on the right side, which is, you would be looking down the drainage. And we look down there like 200 yards away, and there's a massive buck standing up, rear facing us, 180-degree turn with his head looking directly up at the side-by-side. And we pull the binos, like before we can pull the binos up, my camera guy and I, we just scream, giant buck right there. We pull the binos up, and he is just a slob. Coming from Washington, like a 150, 160 buck is a giant deer.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
And he's just standing there looking at us 200 yards away. And now we're like, okay, is this a trophy deer or is this a management deer? Like, we don't know. And so we're looking at him, and then he's like, I don't like this. So he starts hopping across, going up the far hillside, and he eventually drops off into another different drainage. And so Chris Ott gets on the call, calls the guy here that's kind of quote unquote managing the property. He's like, hey man, we just saw a buck. We got some footage of him, sends him photos. And he's like, yeah, that guy will classify as a management buck. We're like, all right, well, we got the green light. Like, here we go. So we go over. So now imagine the Ridge 1 and Ridge 2. We'll talk like that. He had come up and over Ridge 1, and now he's in between Ridge 1 and Ridge 2. And we had not seen him come out, right? So he's in between the two ridges, Ridge 1 and Ridge 2. We are now on Ridge 1. So he's like, all right, Chris Ogg is like, let's drive over to Ridge 2 so that we can see all of Ridge 1. So that if he hides anywhere on Ridge 1, we can pick him out. And so we go over there, we don't see him. And Chris Ogg is like, dude, so a lot of times with these big bucks, like these mule deer, they will simply just run one ridge over into the next draw, and they will just bed up again. And at first I was like, that doesn't sound very right, because the mule deer I hunt, when you spook them, they're gone. Like, they aren't just going to hop over one and hole up again. And so he's like, all right, well, worst case scenario, like, let's just go down there, do quote unquote a still hunt, just kind of cover some bases here, make sure he's not there. And so we come back. And so now we're back to Ridge 1. We're basically back to where that buck had come up and over into the next draw. Chris Ogg and I, we get out, and Andrew and my Chris, they drive the ATV back to Ridge 2. So now me and Chris Ogg are on Ridge 1. My Chris and Andrew on Ridge 2. So we're basically looking at each other with the draw in the middle with where we last seen that buck. So now the buck is in the goalie between us.
You got him surrounded.
Yes. And we are just like super slowly poking, like, you know, every little nook and cranny, like you're stopping, you're glassing it. And I told Chris Ogg, I was like, hey, I last seen him in this little yellow patch of grass. And I saw him dip over, and I never saw him come back out. I didn't see him go up Ridge 2. I never saw him come out Ridge 1. He's got to be in here. And so we go in there, and Chris Ogg, like, dude, he just knows the area so well. He's like, what these deer will do is they'll run into the next goalie, and they will go up the other side, and they will bed on the other side, and they will look back at where they were coming from, so that if anything's chasing them, they can see. And he was so spot on, because as we're like walking sidehilling across Ridge 1, looking at Ridge 2 in the crevices, there he is. He's bedded looking at us like 100 yards away, bedded underneath this little rock. And I'm like, he is locked on us. And so Christoph is like, hey, just back up. Because even though he's seen us, a lot of times, like with these beds, they feel very safe, right? Like they most of the time they just don't think you see them. Fortunately for us, so he's up against Ridge 2. Chris and I were still on Ridge 1. Miraculously, there's a little mound in between us and the deer. And I'm like, if I can get on that mound, I can basically pop over that mound and shoot him across. Because think, from Ridge 2 to Ridge 1, where Chris and I are right now looking at the deer, is 100 yards. I ranged that little mound in between us and the deer, and it was 70 yards. So I was like, if I can get to that mound, I closed 70 yards, which means the buck is sub 30. And so Chris Ock is like, this is perfect. Just sneak out of view, get down to the gully, and as you're going to peek over that mound, just blast that rock in front or above him. That's going to, because we know he's right under that rock. Keep that as your place marker. Range that rock, and he's going to be right below him, same distance. Go up and draw and shoot him. And so I back out. We're out of view now because that little mound is like it's at an angle. It's coming down the creek. So the more we go left, the higher the mound gets, the more out of view we get. So Chris Ock, he gets just enough out of view, and he stays back, and he has a camera, so he's filming. Strap on the GoPro. And so I'm on a solo stock down Ridge 2 into the creek, and I'm start working my way up that mound in between us and the deer. So I'm going up there, and I'm like just super like, I was actually pretty fast because down in the gully, there was a pretty strong wind, and it was blowing. And even though it's dry with that strong wind, it covers up a lot of noise. So I'm like blowing through that grassy bottom, just crunching leaves. And I'm just like, I need to get up there soon. And so the deer is now directly in front of me. So Chris Ock is across. I'm in between him and the deer. I'm in the middle, and this wind is blowing straight up the gully. So basically 90 degrees away from the deer. So I'm creeping up this mound, and my heart is going, understand, this is my second ever stalk on a mule with a bow. And I'm like, there's no way this is about to happen. So I'm creeping up, bow is knocked, arrow's knocked. I have my thumb release already just on the D loop. And I'm like one step, looking, scanning, looking for antler tips. Don't see any, take another step, scanning again. Finally, I get high enough where I see that rock. I'm like, I know he's right under there if he hasn't busted. I go up to range that rock, and it said 27.4 yards. I'm like, oh, geez, this is perfect. For whatever reason, in that moment, I'm thinking like, okay, if this is 27.4 yards, if I get to where I want to get to, it's going to be 20, right? Well, I take another step, and I see his tines right underneath that rock. And I'm like, this is it. So I'm standing. So I crouch, and I go to draw my bow. So I'm completely out of his view. I don't see him at all. I draw my bow. I swing my bow over. And from the first stock where I let my bow down, I was conscious, like, when you swing your bow up, make sure you're really holding it. So I'm holding it, and I stand up, and again, I'm still a little low. So all I see is antler tips. And I could tell he's like looking up because he was looking that way. I take another step, and there he is. He's bedded. And I'm like, okay, so I'm really anticipating this buck to get up. And I stand up there, and I'm fully exposed. Like, I'm as skyline as you can get, but I am at full draw. And I'm looking at it for like maybe a second and a half, which felt a lot longer. And I'm like, man, he's really not going to stand up. I'm about to shoot him in his bed. And so I go to anchor my top pin, which is 20 yards. And I go to anchor. And as soon as that pin settles on his shoulder, he gets up. He gets up, and he stands up, and he looks at me. But then the moment he gets up, I let the arrow go. So he's like quartering to me, and he's kind of downhill, but he's looking up at me. And I just hear the whack. And immediately I'm like, I hit a little low. Because I ranged him 27 yards. I took basically half a step because I'm going up. I didn't cover horizontal distance. So he's 27 yards. I basically shot for 20. So I hit him like 3 inches low or 4 inches low. But it was still high enough where I was like, I think he's hit. But then I hit him, and he takes off to my left, and he go all these little tunnel systems. And he runs down, and he's trying to find a way out. So he runs to my left, and to the left in front of me, there's a giant wall of like cliffs, like about a 10 cliff wall. He runs up there, and he stands there, and I could tell like he's whipping his head back and forth, like he has nowhere to go. So he starts running back towards me, and I'm knocking my arrow as this whole thing is going down. And I'm like, he's going to run right past me. I'm just going to shoot him on the run. Well, he runs back towards me maybe about 5 yards. and then he dips out of view, and he actually comes up my ridge, but then he doesn't fully come out. He comes up my ridge, and then he basically goes directly away from me, and he comes up, and now he's out of the bottom. He's up on state sage land and grass country. So up out of the creek bottom, he's up on the flats. And I'm at full draw, and I'm just guessing. I'm saying he's 60. And I'm under the impression like my first shot wasn't the best. And I also undergo this idea that if I have an arrow, like if I have a deer that's hit with an arrow, I will release as many arrows as I need to, or that I have, until that animal is down. And so he gets up there, and I can immediately tell like he's not normal, because a normal deer would be taken off. Like but he, as soon as he gets up, he's kind of like, he slows down. He's kind of doing the slow walk, and he kind of like turns his head, kind of like, oh, what? I don't really know what the whole ordeal is. So now I'm at full draw. He's super, super steep quartering away. Like I can hardly see the crease of his shoulder. Like this is a shot that I wouldn't pass up if I didn't have a wounded deer. And so I'm guessing 60. So I go super steep quartering away shot. I let the arrow go. I just hear black. He mule kicks, and then he kind of goes, he takes like 10 yards. He goes 10 yards, and I can see the spine of his shoulder or the spine of his back, and I can see his rack. And he runs 10 yards, and he starts like, he's moving his head back and forth. Like he's not feeling good. And so I knock a third arrow in, and I'm like, I'm going to chase this deer out. I know he's hurt bad. So I start running up the spine of this little mound in between us now. And I'm kind of just following, because he's not just standing now. He's slowly walking, but like I'm gaining ground because I'm running. So I get over there, and I pop over the rise, and this deer, like he's not doing well. Like he's already legs out, like he's already wobbling. So I go to full draw again for a third shot, and I'm at full draw, and then he literally like loses his balance, like basically tips over almost, and then he somehow catches himself. And as I see him do that wobble, I'm thinking, oh, he's done, like he's fallen over, but he catches himself. But as he's catching himself, I let down because I thought I was good. Well, he catches himself, so his two front legs are squatted out, and he's like just like shaking his head. I'm like, oh, like I know he's gonna die. I don't want him to suffer any more than he should. So I go back to draw, and as soon as I draw again, I hear my broadhead rattling because my broadhead had come loose. And so now this deer is like standing there, and he had whipped his head and he's looking at me. And I was like, dude, I am so sorry. But then I had let down because I was like, I want to make this arrow right. So I retie my broadhead, go back to full draw. He's quartering away, looking back at me. I shoot him, and it's a quartering away shot, enters from the gut. It goes through. The broadhead basically breaks his off shoulder. And so he's running, and he's like basically limped leg on his right side. He runs 10 yards, and he flips over dead. And I start screaming. Like, I'm like second stock ever in my life. I just killed the biggest mule deer buck of my life with a bow. Craziest stock ever. Would have never guessed in a million years. And as I didn't know this, but when that deer had gotten out of the bottom and he was now up in the sage country, Chris Ock was filming from behind me. My Chris was filming from in front of me. I had a first person POV on my GoPro. So we had like 3 different angles filming this deer as I was shooting him the last time. It was the crazy hunt. And I mean, he tipped over dead. Like I saw his antlers, and he didn't move. And obviously the whole crew came in, and we just celebrated. And Andrew and Chris is running now because I'm now on their ridge, right? I shot the buck up on their ridge. He ran up on their ridge. So Chris Ock is behind me. He's running down up the creek, and we start celebrating because, again, you put an amateur bow hunter who's never hunted deer ever, but essentially with a bow, and he just smashed his personal best deer with the bow, spawn stock, exactly how you would picture a very stereotypical Western, early season mule deer hunt. And it happened on the second stock with an amateur. I don't know how you could have written it up any better,
I mean, so it's so cool that, man, and I can sense your excitement. You telling the story, like I'm getting excited just hearing about it. And there's so many things that come into play there, but like things that you've learned even along the way too. Like you're talking about ranging the buck, but also ranging objects between you and the buck. Like, that became part of your stock planning process and gave you the information that you need to know. Like, hey, when I get to here, like it's good to go. It's go time. And like, I don't know, experienced bow hunter or non-experienced bow hunter, I feel like some of those things, like, oh, your broadhead came loose, or I've had some wild things happen to me that have only happened to me one time ever. And it happened at like that critical moment of truth. It's like, you know, in however many years of shooting your bow or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like you've been hunting all fall, and then like for that split second, like something goes wrong or something changes or this happens. You're like, this has never happened to me before in my life, and now it's happening at this critical moment. And so anyway, I think those things, whether you have a ton of experience or not, sometimes stuff like that happens, and just in the heat of the moment, like, you're like, okay, when I get to here, and if he stands up, and like you said, you know, maybe your first shot was a little bit low. It sounds like it was probably a pretty lethal shot at the end of the day, but biggest mule deer of your life with the bow in a new spot with great people. No, that's cool, man. Sounds just like a really, really cool hunt. And you still have a tag in your pocket. You might get out a little bit today yet. Sounds like you've seen a bunch of antelope and had some stock.
I'm done shooting these antelope with the bow, man. I'm just ready to 30-06 them, man. I'm just like, I'm tired of these antelope, man. They're hard, man. Spot and stock open country with a bow it seems impossible. They're anybody who consistently gets it done on antelope with a spot and stock with a bow, you have my respect, because I'm just about ready to just, you know, get the boomstick and just blast all of them out of regret. I mean, out of spite.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the, it seems like, you know, hunting, when you get one, it keeps you coming back. And when you don't get one, they frustrate you enough that they keep you coming back. And,
yep.
I mean, that's the cool thing about, you know, Wyoming is, you know, you oftentimes do get the option to bow and rifle hunt on a single tag. But I mean, it sounds like, I mean, it can be done. It sounds like Andrew got it done with, you know, he got a mule deer with his recurve and an antelope, which is absolutely crazy. So that's awesome. Good for him.
But yeah, as good as the hunting has been, like at the core of it, it's the people. Like this crew here is like just my favorite, because it's like you can go out hunting, and as frustrating as antelope hunting with a bow might be, it's like you come back and it's just like you kind of reset, because the group's just supportive, and it's like, we'll just go find another one, you know. And so it's not over yet, but my hopes are very high for that antelope. Let's just put it that way.
I love it, man. No, like you said, I mean, the people, you know, who you surround yourself with make the hunt. I've met both those guys. They're great guys. Yeah, I mean, you're making me jealous. I wish I was in camp with you right now, because it just sounds like, you know, an awesome place and awesome people, and you guys have seen some success and you know, a few stocks that probably haven't come together, but it's all part of the fun. And I appreciate you sharing this story with me. So fresh today, Samong.
Dude, I mean, I shared that's the story that happened 2 days ago. Vortex Nation is hearing this podcast live on location, and they're the first to hear it.
I love it, man. Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, because I know you've got stuff to do, including maybe getting back out here in a few minutes. So, but like I said, man, thanks for sharing it. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. Man, there's always hope. You can get it done with the bow. It may seem impossible at first, but it does come together. Samong is proof right here. And yeah, good luck to you with the rest of your hunt. Good luck to everybody out there. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.